During this pandemic, there is a tendency to judge ourselves for not behaving how we would like to, or for not doing the right thing, or for not doing enough. Maybe we're not being the best parents. Maybe we're not behaving so well around our spouses. Maybe we're having frustrations about our work and the changes that we're seeing. And the challenge that arises is we're making things worse for ourselves by being critical in a time when what we might really need is some more kindness and compassion towards ourselves. So today, I'd love to talk about the practice of self-compassion, which was really strange and foreign to me up until about 5-10 years ago when I discovered it. And it's been a life changer. In terms of dealing with my own stress, learning to work with that negative voice in my head and learning to turn it around into a real positive voice of support. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is many of us have a tendency towards self-criticism, self-judgment, and this negative repeating voice that says something like, you're not doing it right, there's a pandemic going on, you're not doing everything you can be doing, hurry up, get busy. And that negative voice is one that often leads us to feel even worse. We start to feel ashamed of ourselves. We may feel guilty, and it can be counterproductive. If you find value in today's video, please feel free to subscribe down below by pressing the button and sharing this with a friend who might find it useful. Let's start out with some really basic definitions. Compassion is the desire to alleviate the suffering of someone else. And there's 3 directions for compassion that we can send that desire to alleviate suffering. We certainly can try to help eliminate someone else's suffering, which is the one we often think of. But we can also turn it around and try to alleviate our own suffering, as if we're being our own parent and nurturing ourselves through a hard time. And the 3rd form of compassion is a global compassion. Compassion for large communities or even the entire world to try to make the world a better place to live in. So these are the 3 directions of compassion, and we'll be talking about self-compassion today, and I'll describe exactly what it is and how powerful it is. Where does this self-judgment come from? Often as children, we have this voice. Maybe it's a parent or a teacher or even somebody that we know that's critical of our behavior. It's saying something like, you're not good enough, you got to try harder, that wasn't so hot. Whatever the voice is, hearing these voices over and over, eventually we start to internalize them. They start to sound like ourselves, and we tell ourselves, I'm not good enough, I have to try harder. And we often take on a belief that we have to push ourselves with this inner voice, otherwise we'll be doomed to failure. And it turns out from science that that's not the case. Taking a more compassionate, kind approach towards our own challenges ends up motivating us more than taking that harsh, critical voice. It's worth noting that this can be a very awkward idea for some people. Some of us who aren't used to lovey-dovey, feel good, treat yourself well, may say, oh, I'm too tough for that, or that's really only for people who need it. And I found that most of us really need it. Often we are unable to face our own difficulties, those hard emotions of shame and guilt and frustration and anger. And as a society, we don't discuss emotions, we don't give ourselves permission to feel emotions, and we often take the energy of those negative emotions and we try to stuff it away, escape into some kind of a habit to make ourselves feel a little bit numb. And we can do that by overeating, by surfing the internet, by scrolling social media over and over. There are so many ways, and we can even just binge television for hours at a time. Eventually, those habits, which may seem very innocent, lead us to feel more shame, more frustration at ourselves, and we say, well, I didn't deal with that moment so skillfully, I just kept doing the same thing over and over. And so in a sense, we're adding to our own difficulty with these habits that don't get us what we really need, which may be deeper connection with other people, a healthier mind, a healthier body. Just so you don't think that this is something we're only doing to make our minds happier, As a cardiologist, I find it very, very interesting to know that people who are more cynical and angry and less kind to other people and to themselves have a higher risk of heart disease and stroke. And we know that there is what's called a type D personality, where people have negative emotions or tend to be more socially isolated. And the research says that these people do have a higher risk of heart attack, as well as anxiety and depression. There's a growing body of scientific literature showing extensive benefits of practicing self-compassion and kindness towards oneself. Psychologists Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer have developed a mindfulness-based self-compassion course that goes on for 8 weeks, and they found that the benefits can last up to 1 year. Research has shown that practitioners of self-compassion experience less anxiety, less depression, and they tend to avoid difficult emotions less and are overall happier and more satisfied with their day-to-day experience. When I think about self-compassion, I think about 5 steps from becoming judgmental of ourselves to becoming fully open, accepting, and loving of ourselves, and really kind on a day-to-day basis. And the 5 steps are, first, having the intention or the wish to reduce our own suffering. And that may sound obvious, but so many of us can live our lives without ever sending ourselves this wish that we could make it through suffering with less difficulty. The second step involves forgiving ourselves. We often carry around baggage from yesterday, from last week, last month, or even our childhood, where we may have behaved in a way that we weren't happy with, and we continue to tell ourselves a story about how we are bad people or not worthy of love, or we judge ourselves over and over. And there's a process of self-forgiveness where we choose to let go of that blame of ourselves, realizing that it's not getting us anywhere, and in fact it's keeping us from becoming who we want to be. The next step after setting an intention to self-care, working on self-forgiveness, is offering ourselves soothing compassion for our own suffering, sending ourselves the wish from our own heart to our own heart that things should be easier. The fourth step is offering kindness to ourselves. So it's not just to reduce our own suffering, but it's to go beyond that and to wish ourselves well, to say something like, may you be happy, or may I be happy, sending myself the wish. May I be healthy, may I have love in my life, whatever the wish is, and we'll talk about this in another program, sending myself a sense of kindness and good wishes, just as if I was talking to my own best friend. And the fifth and final step is, once I've sent myself kindness, and then I can start to send other people kindness and spread it out to everybody in my community, or maybe everyone in the world, with the belief that even though I may not like everyone, I can learn to have empathy for everyone's own unique story. And I can understand that if other people suffered less, they might behave in ways that were more kind and caring, making society a better place to live in. So to summarize, we've talked today about self-compassion and why we need it now. Many of us have a tendency towards self-judgment, to have a negative voice in our head that's constantly criticizing ourselves, and in the end getting us caught up in the past rather than moving on to a future and towards possibility. It also tends to rev up our stress, fight, or flight system so that we're not open to new possibilities. Whereas if we learn to recognize that voice in our heads, the self-critical voice, learn to just let it be and to gradually replace it with a more kind and friendly voice, something like, you're doing the best you can, you're going to be okay, I'm on your side, we start to become our own best friend. We talked about the 5 steps towards self-compassion, which is the first, setting an intention to be kind to ourselves. The second is forgiving ourselves for past errors or transgressions. The third is offering ourselves compassion for the suffering that we have and wishing ourselves that it should be less. The fourth step is wishing ourselves kindness and happiness and success. And then the fifth step is sending those wishes outward to the people around us and to the whole world. So the practice for the next week or two, if you like, just on each day, notice whether you're talking to yourself, this inner monologue, notice whether you're talking to yourself in a kind or an unkind way. If you slip up or make a mistake, can you hear a voice that's got a harsh tone and a very negative message? And if so, just accept that that's your brain trying to do what it knows how to do, though it may not be that helpful. And then the next challenge is, can you start to think of ways that you might talk to a best friend who is suffering or having the same difficulty? Or perhaps you might even give your friend a hug. And you might do that same thing to yourself. Give yourself a little hug and say something like, "You're doing the best that you can. This is a really difficult time. I'm proud of you." Or even, "I love you." That's the practice of self-compassion. I wish you luck, and I'm really happy you joined me today. If you found value in this video, I'd love it if you subscribed by clicking the button down below and sharing it with a friend or two who might get benefit as well. Thank you for being here. Be kind to yourself and each other.